It's an interesting story because it started right after high school when I landed my first job with Ontario Housing and started right at the bottom, like anyone else would have to do in working. And I reported to work. Supervisor on the site decided that he just didn't feel like giving me a pair of work boots that day. And there was a shop steward on the site when I'd reported to work and asked me where my boots were. Told him the scenario, and he immediately went to work and ended up getting me that pair of boots the day after. So I was very impressed with that kind of power, I guess. A week later, there was a union meeting, and the shop steward that ended up getting me those work boots ended up retiring. So they had to fill a position within the union, and there was a nomination that had my name attached to it. I accepted it and became a shop steward. The union at the time decided that they would groom me and sent me to college. So I got my post-secondary education through the union and graduated at Humber College. It's ironic in that after college, ran the union, became the president, became very political, and decided to try my hand at trying to change legislation in that particular position, and became a lobbyist, really, and was in front of the government on a regular basis at a young age, and got introduced to politics, and that's how it all happened, and it's all because of that pair of boots. My wife threw out those pair of boots about 3 years ago, not knowing the history, so I was very sad. I encourage most people to tune in on February the 25th, where I'll be releasing my platform as a mayoralty candidate. But for me, it really is about providing the services that we need to provide for people that are important, making sure that property taxes are held at a bare minimum, and in fact try to reduce them. And to ensure that our children and our seniors are taken care of, as well as the vulnerable members of society like the disabled, and to make sure that those policies aren't necessarily touched and enhanced instead of cut. So those in a nutshell are basically what I think the vision holds for the city with me at the helm. I think that selling public assets is probably a cop-out. I think there are some that we could seriously take a look at. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction that will only cause a problem. Selling hydro off, for instance, is not a good idea. While I am right of center and believe that we should be working with partners out there, I also believe that there are some things that is important to keep within the public realm for obvious reasons. Taxpayers should continue to subsidize hydro, and if they don't, and if they give it away to the private sector, what will happen is something we've already experienced. A few years ago we had a blackout, and it was due to a problem in the States where a private sector company was running an outfit and made some mistakes, and we had to suffer for those mistakes. I think when it comes to profit making, I think it's important to recognize that I believe in it, but when it comes to things like hydro, you're jeopardizing, as well as that you'll get increases on a regular basis. So it's going to be more expensive for people to buy their hydro, and I think that we need to continue on the track we're at, and I think there are some things that make sense with subsidizing, and hydro is one of them. Other things are, I believe that we should take a look at everything we have, but not a knee-jerk reaction. I think we need to revisit the whole budget, figure out where it is we could save, what programs we need, which programs we don't, go back to the basics, and then decide on what to sell off and what not to sell off. The way to deal with debt is like you would deal with it at home. You need to figure out what you can afford and what you can't, and you need to cut out silly expenditures that you don't need to be spending. Do we, at home, if you don't need 3 TVs, why are you buying 3 TVs? If you don't need 3 cars, why are we buying 3 cars? I think the city, in many respects, has created a scenario where we're spending money on things that we don't need. So we need to revisit that budget, revisit what are the things that we don't need, talk about what the priorities are in our city, and fix the problem that way. Find out what the residents want as services, as a priority for them, and cut out the rest of it. And that's how to fix the budget. Not to sell everything off, not as I said earlier, not knee-jerk reactions. I think you need to analyze, make the right decisions. Tough love is the approach, and I think we'll be okay if we do that. It's time to revisit and relook at everything we're doing, start fresh, start over, and if it's about services that are currently run by city employees, unionized city employees, we need to take a hard look at that and see whether or not we want to continue with that over the next 20 or 25 years. It's time that we be honest with everyone and tell them that that's the approach we need to take, and hopefully they'll work with us and not against us. I personally believe that handing it over to the private sector has to be looked at. We need to look at everything. But I also believe that it's the province that needs to take ownership of public transportation, especially now with the suburbs the way they are, the GTA growing the way it is, and they're trying to amalgamate everything now with a number of different transit lines. It's best to have one transit line for the GTA, and the only entity that can do that is really the province. So we need to start thinking about uploading that $1.7 billion worth of transit system that could save us a bundle on our budget and give it back to the province. Let them spend the money, let them make the decisions. Public transportation is important, and we must think of a way to increase our public transportation system. We have to recognize that subways have a place in this city. And I believe in subways before the typical on-street LRT tracks. I think we've done ourselves an injustice by not thinking about how to build subways in the city and maybe have both LRTs and subways. Right now, subways aren't an option, and I think they should be. I think we were fine the way we were. I think we're trying to accommodate the cyclist just a little too much in this city. And I think that more education about laws and how that pertains to cyclists is more important at this particular time. You can build all the lanes we want, but they're still breaking the law. They're still going through red lights as cyclists, and I think that'll create even more of a problem because it gives them a sense that they're safe in those lanes. If they're breaking the law, they're not going to be safe. So I think it's more about educating the cyclist and making sure they understand the rules of the road, and that the road doesn't belong to the cyclist. The road belongs to those that are driving to and from work or wherever they're going in their car, as well as the cyclist. And pedestrians have a role to play in this as well. But the reality is it's safety that I think is the most important factor. So instead of building all these lanes that give this impression that everyone's safe, I think we need to send the message to the cyclists that you need to abide by the rules of the road just like everyone else does.
What it takes to win an election, in your opinion?
Something like this. I'm proud to be in front of this camera today and talking a little bit about who I am. I think that's the first step. I think people need to know who is Giorgio M, where does he come from, and recognize that I have something to offer. My experience certainly is one of those, and to let people know that I've got a plan, which is important. People need to know that I will be issuing out my platform probably before any other candidate will, and that I want to start debating that now, not in September. And I think that that's the way to do it. It's baby steps, and that's the way I want to bring forward my campaign.